What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are taking a look at Urshifu VMAX being paired with Inteleon VMAX. So if you guys don't know, this deck, Urshi Intel, is very good in the format depending on what the format is. The way the deck works is that you use Inteleon VMAX and use its double gunner ability. You discard a water energy and you choose two of your opponent's bench Pokemon and put 2 damage counters on them. And it also has the attack Gmax Spiral, where if you put an energy back into your hand, it does 140 damage. So normally you look at this ability and you're like, cool, you put 2 damage counters on each of them. How is that really any good? That comes in handy because with cards like Radiant Alakazam, we can move the 2 damage counters around, which eventually means that you can set up math in order to use Medicham V. Now, Medicham V has a very unique attack. You place 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and if it's knocked out, you get to take another turn. So your opponent doesn't get another turn. It goes from you attacking right back into your turn, which means you can play another supporter. You can attach another energy. You can evolve Pokemon that you had just put into play. So it's super solid. And then as a backup attacker, in order to set things up on math-wise, you can use Gmax Rapid Flow with Urshifu VMAX and also use Gale Thrust for 150 damage. Most of the time, you'll be using Gmax Rapid Flow, which it discards all energy from the Pokemon and then does 120 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. And as you guys can tell, this deck thrives heavy on low HP Pokemon. So in a format like Lost Box being dominant, this is a very strong pick. We also do have cards like Cheryl, as most of the time you have the ability to accelerate energy with cards like Melanie. So if you have to, wait a turn, you can use Cheryl. But most of the time when you're attacking with the Inteleon, you have the ability to attach a Rapid Strike energy, which is basically 2 energy, and it counts as both water and fighting at the same time. So you can Cheryl and then attach this, heal all the damage, and, just keep hitting for massive amounts. And on top of that, we do have Karina's Focus, and this just allows you to draw 2 F6. And the pilot to make this whole deck work is Octillery. Octillery has the ability Rapid Strike Search. Once during your turn, you can search your deck for a Rapid Strike card, reveal it, and put it to your hand. You can't use more than one of these abilities in a turn. So, as always, the deck list will be posted right here, but I do want to say that this deck is a ton of fun. It's definitely something that you should learn how to play. That way you know how to play against it and know what your opponent can do. But with that being said, guys, I want to thank you for watching today's video. If you do enjoy it, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. And with that being said, I want to thank you for all of the support, and I will catch you guys in the gameplay. Later. Alrighty, let's get right into game number 1 with Urshifu Inteleon, seeing exactly what we can do. Seeing if we can Yoga Loop our opponents and do the prize trades that we enjoy doing when it comes to playing this deck. So looking at this start, not too bad, not too bad, not too good. We definitely do have access to some things. We do have that 4 Seal Stone, which means that we could Ultra Ball 4 Inteleon and then actually search for a 4 Seal Stone or grab something like the Irida. And then Irida can allow us to grab an extra Pokemon, so I don't actually hate that. And I think pivoting off of this Remoraid is good too, as it means that we have the ability to kind of mitigate what my opponent wants to do. And thankfully, with playing against Charizard, we actually, the prize math doesn't really work out in their favor, because although we're going to be taking prizes, it's going to be something that is going to be super dependent on how our turns go. We're not going to just have turns where, the prizes are gone and things like that. So just in case this Remoraid is KO'd, we are going to use the Artisan, and Artisan can grab the other Remoraid. And I think what we're going to do is use the Cheryl. I really don't want to get rid of too much. Let's see. I'm going to get rid of the energy retrieval, and then we'll grab the Inteleon. Let's just double check, see what's prized. So, the Ultra Ball, not too much is prized. So we are in a good spot. We can use that Irida, and then the following turn we actually have some setup, and can go from there. So we'll attach the Forest Seal Stone, and then we'll use that Star Alchemy. Star Alchemy can grab us the Irida, and then we can try and go into a full setup board here. So we'll grab the Inteleon. We'll also grab that Battle VIP Pass, just so that way we have use for it. And then we can use that Battle VIP Pass. We can grab the... I don't think I'm going to need Radiant Alakazam right now. I think, honestly, I can go into the Urshi, because if my opponent does... Urshi might be the best bet here, actually. So we'll go Urshi, and then we'll go the Alakazam too, just so that way we can set it up. Let's make sure that we have the escape ropes, just in case something gets pivoted. We do have an escape rope, so we're not in the worst situation. And then next turn, we have the ability to evolve, and go from there. Now, I am going to attach the energy to the Urshifu, just because if we can't get the VMAX out next turn, if my opponent doesn't play something like the Manaphy down, we can actually KO the Pidgey as well as the Charmander, leaving my opponent with a lone Arceus that is weak to the Urshifu. So I don't actually hate the route that all of this is going. So there's my opponent using Ultra Ball. So they are going to be able to get that V-Star. But then off of what they get with the V-Star, I'm not too sure. They could grab a rare candy into a Pidgeot. And then Pidgeot would allow them to grab another card that they choose to play. It's really give and take. Thankfully, though, if my opponent doesn't get out the Manaphy, we can actually target down the 2 Charmander in case my opponent decides to rare candy into the Pidgeot. And if my opponent promotes Arceus to go for a swing or anything like that, we actually do have the ability to one-shot it as long as we get an Urshifu VMAX and a Stadium. So, but having this energy here, I don't actually hate it too much. So there's the rare candy into the Pidgeot, just as I thought. Which means now my opponent can use that quick search to be able to benefit off of grabbing any card. And I'm trying to think the best way that I could possibly play this out. I need to find the Stadium to retreat, and then possibly the energy. If I can find Octillery, that'll be even better, so... And my opponent going for the quick search. There's the Avery. So Avery is going to be a little bit detrimental to us. Thankfully, we do have that Clara, though. So we can actually get rid of the Alakazam and the Remoraid. I got rid of the Remoraid because I do have the one in the active. So I should be A-okay. My opponent chooses to retreat into Charmander. So going for the attach here, and then the tail on fire. So now off of this Karina, we're hoping to hit a way to KO 2 of my opponent's Charmanders. We'll set them back a lot, and then we can proceed with the rest of the turns. So getting the Medicham, not bad. We can evolve Karina's Focus, and do we find a way to get what we need done? And we actually do, which is perfect, because we can evolve, attach, use the escape rope, get the damage off, and then go from there. And I don't hate that at all. So we'll evolve into the Urshifu, attach, use that escape rope, and then next turn we do have access to Ultra Ball as well. And then, providing that my opponent benches another Charmander, we can set up the Yoga Loop. So, everything's seeming to work out how we need it to. So, we can use the G-Max Rapid Flow in order to go 120, 120. And then next turn, potentially setting up the Medicham. so that way we can Yoga Loop. Again, just having to make sure that we do find the counter stadium. We do find 2 water energy, which is perfect. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the Radiant Alakazam, so we do have to hope that we can hit off of 2 Shurikens with the Inteleon. So my opponent has already used their V-Star, so we don't have to worry about that coming to light. So as long as we can hit a way to retreat and really anything else that we may need for next turn, we should be okay. My opponent going for the Jacques, so my opponent's going to be able to grab something like the Charizard. There is the Charizard as well as the Bibarel. So, let's see. My opponent passes. That's perfectly fine with me. And I get Spiritomb. Spiritomb is going to be useless right now. So what we can do is Ultra Ball, getting rid of the Ultra Ball and the Water Energy. I'm going to need the 1 regardless, so won't be too bad. We'll grab that Octillery. We can evolve into Octillery. Use that Inteleon VMAX for the Double Gunner, putting 20 and 20. And then go for the Professor's Research. And now comes down to this. We don't have the energy just yet. We actually have to find a way to retreat and do everything else. We could retreat though and actually hit the Arceus for 140. There's nothing that I really need to Nest Ball for. We'll go for the other Inteleon just so we can set up some other math later. But I think what we're going to do now is just go for the Tower of Waters. We'll use that Octillery. Octillery will allow us to grab the Rapid Energy. It was a lot that we needed for that turn, so I'm actually not too surprised that we didn't get it. But now we have access to using that G-Max Spiral, doing the extra damage. And now if my opponent retreats, we do have a knockout on the Arceus if we want to go for a Melanie play and actually use G-Max Rapid Flow. So it's not too bad. My opponent is not going to be able to one-shot with the Charizard EX. So we're in a very good spot here. And if my opponent benches something like another Charmander or benches a Bidoof for anything like that, we actually do have the ability to potentially Yoga Loop it. Again, having to deal with that Avery was a little bit of a play that I wasn't predicting for, but it's not the end of the world by any means. My opponent goes for the attach, going to be able to use that quick search, and then the Arceus V-Star is going to allow them to hit for 200 damage. Now they can bring up something like one of our Inteleons. If they do that, it's a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So there is Avery. Avery, we're going to get rid of... how do I want to go with this? We'll get rid of the Medicham and an Inteleon. Just because we do have the ability to swing next turn, and then we do actually have ways to deal some damage, so I'm not too upset by that. My opponent hitting the Super Rod, Avery being super annoying, my opponent playing 2 of those. So next turn we can actually go into the other Inteleon if we choose to, and actually swing, taking the knockout. Trying to think if there's anything I'd like to top deck in this situation. Maybe the Clara, just because it helps to kind of deal with everything. My opponent actually searches out 6 energy total, so kind of putting themselves at some weird math for sure. So I'm going to search out the Octillery, and then we can evolve. We'll use that energy retrieval, getting 2 of the waters back. And then this does give us the ability to double gunner. And then we can use the double gunner again. Just adding the math up onto this Pidgeot. And then we can retreat into a fresh Inteleon, meaning my opponent has to use something like the boss's orders. I'm just going to thin the deck a little bit just so that way I have some other things that I can search. And then we'll use that G-Max Spiral, taking 2 prizes, and the Charizard won't be able to one-shot us, so we should be able to win in the next couple turns. Now, my opponent can do something like boss's orders, but again, we're just going to hit the Charizard for 140 into 140, which is 280 plus the damage that's already on it, which I believe is 60, so it'll put my opponent at 340. So there's not too much that my opponent's going to be able to do. And if my opponent decides to bench something, we do have the chance to Yoga Loop it. So there is the Path to the Peak. Path to the Peak not really going to do much to us now. And my opponent actually used Path to the Peak before Pidgeot, so that may have been a misplay on their part. So my opponent hitting for 300 damage, which means that what we gain the ability to do now is just go here. I'm not going to counter the Path to the Peak. I don't think that there's a reason to right now, and it's actually hurting my opponent more than hurting, or more than helping them. So we can actually just look through our deck and see what cards we potentially want to grab. We'll grab that Urshifu VMAX just so that way we can evolve and it gets a card out of the deck. Use that energy search. And now we should have the win. We have the 140 damage going down. My opponent is going to be able to take 3 prizes, but then we just have the Inteleon to hit 140. My opponent plays something like Iono. We have the Octillery to search it out. So my opponent in a very awkward situation. I don't think that there's much that they're going to be able to do. I think at this point it is just a small concession coming towards the end of this game. So that turn of being able to use the Urshifu with G-Max Rapid Flow was really like perfect, as it meant that we actually were able to take out the 2 Charizard and set my opponent back. So my opponent going for the Iono play plus the path, but again with Octillery we do have the ability to just go for exactly what we need. My opponent hitting the Burning Darkness, which means now we can just promote the Inteleon. We can use that Octillery with the Rapid Strike Search, grabbing us the Rapid Strike Energy, attaching for the turn, and then going for that G-Max Spiral in order to hit 140 damage and take our last 2 prize cards. So, our last 2 prize cards being Melanie and Battle VIP Pass. So, that was game 1. Let's see how we do getting into a game number 2. Alrighty guys, getting into a game number 2 here. Gonna see if we can actually pull off the Yoga Loop this time around, because it seems very satisfying, and I really hope that we're not running into 2 Averys. Avery is a very annoying card to deal with, so I'm hoping that my opponent, if anything, doesn't play any copies, but if they do, they only play 1. Which means that we would be in a position to be able to kind of set up. And this hand is... wow, that's an atrocious hand. If we can top deck something like an Ultra Ball, it'll probably be a lot better. But we are playing against Gardevoir. Gardevoir being a somewhat okay matchup. We do have the ability to actually, you know, swing things in our favor. So it's not the end of the world. we're able to use Inteleon plus also Yoga Loop. So it all comes down to how my opponent plays out. If my opponent doesn't get Manaphy down, we can actually punish them. But it is going to be an uphill climb, especially with the hand that we have here. This hand is not good at all. And it's currently 11:30 at night, and it's starting to rain. So, okay, we actually top deck Irida, which is fantastic because Irida means that we can grab the Inteleon and also grab that Battle VIP pass. And start having some fun. So we can go Inteleon, use that Battle VIP pass, grabbing us a third Inteleon as well as Remoraid. And as far as what I want to accomplish for this turn, we can Nest Ball. I'm going to grab the Radiant Alakazam now just because it forces my opponent to potentially go for really a boss play, if anything. And we'll just attach to the Inteleon. It is a bit unfortunate that I have to attach, but it's not the end of the world. I could have grabbed Ultra Ball, that way next turn I do have access to Melanie, but I'm pretty sure that I'll be in a good situation with everything, so I shouldn't have to worry too much. My opponent is just piling up on the Curlias. Wow. So my opponent grabs 3 Curlias off of 3 level balls, and now it's going to make us work for a knockout next turn. Now if we can get a Yoga Loop going next turn, we'll be in a fantastic spot. But I do need to see quite a bit of cards in order for that to work out for us. So there's the Rare Candy into Gardevoir EX. So not too much that my opponent's going to be able to do, though, as they only do have 1 Psychic Energy in the discard. There's the concealed card, so there is 2. And there is the other refinement, discarding a Mew. So my opponent digging hard for the possibilities. If we do get something like the Inteleon VMAX, it'll actually be super solid, as it means that we can start to set up. And my opponent just going for a research. Discarding a Super Rod. There is a Fog Crystal for the Cresselia. So Cresselia going to be quite annoying for us to deal with. But it's not the end of the world. Cresselia does have 120 HP. So if we do actually run into the ability to use Aqua Bullet, we can actually snipe some damage and also get rid of the Curlia. So, or get rid of the Cresselia. My apologies. So my opponent is using the Gardevoir and is using that Moonglow Reverse. I'm not too sure what they're going to be able to do. They can KO the Remoraid, but again, at the point that we're in this game, I don't think it's going to be too awkward for us. And we can still keep the damage up. So I just need a good top deck, preferably something like an Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball would allow us to get Lumineon, which means we can start to set up a lot of damage on the board. So there's the Moonglow Reverse, KOing that Remoraid, and now I need to get this Cresselia out of the way. So, can we top deck anything unique? And we get Iono. Iono's actually not that bad. What I am gonna do, let's see. If I hit the VMAX, I KO regardless, so I think I'm okay to do this. So we're gonna use the Iono. Hopefully hit the VMAX, which would allow us to kind of set up some more. And we do hit the VMAX, as well as a lot of other things, which is great for the following turn. So we can actually use this Double Gunner on the Inteleon, putting 20 and 20. And then we can go for a G-Max Spiral for 140 damage, doing the extra damage, which means that we are solid for next turn. And next turn, we are going to be able to grab a Nest Ball, and we actually do have access to using Yoga Loop. So next turn, we can Irida for Nest Ball and Remoraid, or Octillery. Then after the Octillery, we can search for the Stadium. play down the Yoga Loop, and then play it out, go for Inteleon again. So next turn is looking pretty good as long as my opponent doesn't KO this Remoraid. So my opponent going for the Refinement. We are tight on prizes, so they're not going to be able to KO us unless they do have something like that Zacian. But if they do have Zacian, we do have access to Yoga Loop again. So I don't actually hate it. My opponent going for the Cresselia play again, which is insane. They are shuffling it back. And there is the Ultra Ball. But thankfully, with the damage that is adding up, we should still be okay. I'm pretty sure that I can still pull off a Yoga Loop. Because my opponent has to put 20 here. So these will go 20. And then 40, 60. We can pull off the Yoga Loop as well, which gets rid of my opponent's consistency. And then we can also KO the Cresselia. So I don't hate that at all. And we do have access to the Energy Retrieval too, which means that we can put even more damage on my opponent's side of the board. So my opponent going for the Retreat. And there is the Gardevoir coming down. Going to be a little bit annoying to deal with, but not too bad. But the only issue now is that, oh, my opponent goes for Iono. So my opponent could actually Iono us into it. Let's see. So we hit the Energy Nest Ball for Seal Stone. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I can potentially do. I don't think there is. My opponent's going to go for the Moonglow Reverse. It all comes down to our top deck. I can't pull the Yoga Loop off, depending on what I top deck here, though. So we do get Escape Rope. So with Escape Rope, I can actually pull it off. So it's going to be a bit tricky for us to do, but I don't hate the chances of it. But I need the Water Energy, too, which makes things awkward. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to use the Star Alchemy. Star Alchemy is going to grab us the Irida. And then Irida will grab us the Inteleon VMAX as well as the Energy Retrieval, just so we can continue to put damage down. We do have one energy, so we are going to be able to set up the Yoga Loop. So we'll Nest Ball, and we don't actually have the Yoga Loop present. Wow, I should have checked that. I should have grabbed... Oh, my Hisuian Heavy Ball is prized as well. So, we'll just grab the... let's see. I can put 60 onto the Curlia. And actually put damage on this Guardy as well, which I don't hate. So, we'll use the Energy Recycler, or Retrieval, just for one. And then we'll go 2020. We'll attach, and then next turn we do have access to the we have access to the ability to potentially Lumineon for a supporter. So we'll use that GMAX Spiral. Doing the extra damage, we'll put the water back into our hand just so that way we have the ability to use the Double Gunner. Taking a prize card, and it is Iono, so if my opponent takes a knockout here, we do have the ability to set up some big damage on my opponent's side. My opponent needs to find an evolution for this Curlia, because if not, we do have the Double Gunners to take the knockout. So, unfortunately, with having Hisuian Heavy Ball gone and also having the... Okay, so my opponent goes Boss's Orders, bringing up the Rapid Strike Urshifu. I'm completely fine with that. We're about to leave my opponent with nothing. We're going to be able to take 2 prizes. So there is the Manaphy. My opponent is going to be able to take 2 prizes, but we're going to run my opponent out of all of the resources as far as drawing and doing anything. I don't actually hate, the aspects of us winning, so. And we can actually set damage up on the Manaphy as well, so. My opponent going for the Shining Arcana. We just need to make sure that we can evolve the Inteleon, and my opponent does have quite a bit of energy to work with, so. There is the Brainwave. So what we're going to do is promote the Inteleon. And we do draw Clara. Clara can actually be super huge. I don't think it's going to be super important right now. So what we're going to do is double gunner. We're going to put the 20 and 20. And then we can use the Iono, putting my opponent to 2 cards. I should have used the Ultra Ball before, but it's not the end of the world. We'll use the Radiant Alakazam now, so that way we can go 10 and 10. Taking a prize card, and we do get Lumineon, which means we do have access to a supporter for next turn. And then we'll use that double gunner. Double gunner will allow us to go 20 and 20. And then if we do hit the ability to get a Yoga Loop off, we should be able to win. So what we'll do is use the GMAX Spiral. We will bring the energy back, hitting for 140. And now my opponent has no draw, and we get a prize card. We get Octillery. Not really going to do us the best, but we do have access to Iono. We only play 2 Iono, so I have to hope that my opponent bricks out of their mind. Because I need a way to retreat. I do have Lumineon. Lumineon can actually grab the Cheryl, which means that I could Cheryl all of the damage off that this Gardevoir does, which I don't hate that either. So, and on top of that, we have access to the double gunners to take prizes on the Manaphy as well. So, not looking too bad here for us. Definitely is something that's a little bit awkward when, your Remoraids get KO'd by the Cresselia, but, we've put my opponent in such an awkward spot, and they have to damage themselves, so there is 40. My opponent will put themselves up to 100. We do have access to Cheryl. So if my opponent leaves this Greninja up here, we can win guaranteed. I don't think that there's going to be very much my opponent can do, and it seems like they've gone AFK. So my opponent has Boss plus Energy for the Gardevoir. They can hit for 190 on the Inteleon. I should have definitely evolved it, but it's not the end of the world. The play that honestly we would have done is they would have hit, we would have Cheryl'd hit for 140, and then they would have hit, and then we hit for 140. So even if my opponent ends up conceding this game, or being AFK, we will definitely be in the position to win. So we have access to 2 double gunners as well. So my opponent just passes, and now we can just set up exactly what we need to. I am going to play out my hand, though, just to ensure that there's nothing else that I'm missing. We'll grab the Inteleon, and then we can attach, bench the Lumineon, just so that way we don't draw an extra card. We can draw an extra card, my apologies. We'll use the double gunner. We will use double gunner once more. And then we'll use Karina's Focus to draw. Not really getting anything else that we need. We'll use that Radiant Alakazam to move 10 off of the Gardevoir. taking our last prize card, to which we get the Battle VIP Pass. So this means that the last prize card here is going to be the Yogaloot Medicham. So taking our last prize card here, Iono being a very strong card, and there is indeed the Medicham V. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. If you enjoyed the video, share it with a friend. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Later.